Ahlan biku. We all know pesto as an iconic Italian flavour and gochujang as a pillar of South Korean cuisine, but what's the equivalent for Palestinian food? I'd say it's Masakan. Through a labour of love, onions are confit with tangy sumac, then mixed with aromatic chicken to create a symphony of umami and tangy flavours. It's so flavourful that Palestinians have been using Masakan in so many innovative ways, and today we'll show you how to make a Masakan fatta. It's a simpler and quicker version that adds even more delicious flavours and textures, and takes it to the next level.
We're going to build this fatta in layers, starting with a base of crispy fried pita chips. We'll add succulent and flavourful masakan on top of that, then pour over a delicious and creamy yogurt tahini sauce and some fresh Palestinian chili sauce. We'll garnish with some parsley, fried almonds and pomegranate to finish off this visual and flavourful showstopper. Let's start by getting the crispy fried pita chips out of the way. This is one of those simple everyday components that you can make and save for so many other things like salad garnishes. First, you need to cut a few pita breads into squares. Use some scissors to cut them into strips, and then stack a few strips and cut them into squares about this big. Once you have a load like this, place a frying pan on the stove and pour in about 2 cups of vegetable oil. Heat that over high heat and test it by adding a piece of bread. When that starts frying like this, it's time to add enough bread to fill the pan. Stir the bread frequently to ensure even browning, and fry for between 30 seconds to 2 minutes until they turn this golden colour. Once they do, pull them out onto a paper towel lined plate and let them drain off while the next batch fry. Instead of frying, you could also make these pita chips in an air fryer or in the oven using this method in this other video. Once fried, hit them with some salt and black pepper, then toss to make sure they're well seasoned. Keep the oil hot because you'll now reuse it to fry some almonds for garnish. As an alternative, you can use pine nuts or any other nuts. Fry the blanched almonds for about 30 seconds, stirring them frequently until they turn golden, then drain them off on some paper towels. I think seasoning these makes all the difference, so hit them with some salt as well. Now set these components aside, and let's get to the real meat of this dish, the masakan. To make this flavour bomb, we're going to season and cook some chicken, then confit some juicy sumac onions before mixing the two together. Although this isn't the traditional way of making it, it's a simple way to get the sour and umami flavours of masakan with very little effort. You start it by seasoning the chicken, and to do that make a masakan spice mix by adding some salt, a good amount of sumac, some black pepper, a bit of warm cinnamon and then a little cardamom to a bowl. Mixed together, those are the spices that give the chicken and masakan its warming flavours. Add minced garlic and olive oil to the spices and mix those together to turn it into a delicious wet rub. Now it's time to add that to the chicken, and I'm using chicken breasts which are going to make great bite-sized pieces, but thighs will work too. You want evenly thick chicken fillets, so slice them in half horizontally and that way the chicken can cook evenly. Once they're evenly thick, add them to a bowl and pour over the wet rub we just made, then mix it well with the chicken. Once each piece is evenly coated, we're ready to move over to the stove and start cooking. Here's the secret to making the juiciest pan-fried chicken: a good sear and steam. Place a high-walled pan on the stove on high heat and add in a tablespoon of olive oil. Once the oil is rippling, lay in your first batch of chicken fillets and cook them on the first side for about 90 seconds. Flip them over to the second side and then pour in a few tablespoons of water to make some steam. Cover the pan with a lid to trap in the steam and turn the heat to medium, and this is going to ensure the chicken fillets end up super juicy. It takes about 3 more minutes to cook the chicken, so when the time is up, check it with a thermometer for doneness before pulling the chicken out of the pan and letting it rest. It's best to keep these cooked chicken pieces covered while you cook the rest to make sure they stay moist. Now would be a convenient time to have a good cry, and you can do it while slicing a bunch of onions. These will confit in olive oil with a load of sumac to become the iconic masakan onions. All you need to do is slice the onions into strips that are about 3mm wide. Once sliced, give them a little scrunch to separate the layers. When the second batch of chicken is finished cooking, set them aside so you can cook the onions in the same pan. Turn the stove down to medium heat and add in a large amount of the best olive oil you can buy. Using good olive oil is key to this dish as it forms part of the masakan sauce, and Palestinian olive oil is even better.
Right now, the olive harvest in Palestine should be in full swing, and a key part of it is testing the quality of the harvested olive oil by making masakan. Unfortunately, this year the olive harvest has been cancelled due to the dire situation in Gaza and attacks on olive farmers in the West Bank. Rather than making masakan, over 1 million people are struggling to find adequate food and shelter. Middle East is teaming up with Cook for Palestine and Choose Love, who are raising funds through the universal language of food. They're working with local partners in Gaza, such as the Palestine Children's Relief Fund and Medial Aid for Palestinians, to help fulfill the immediate needs of Gaza's civilian population. If you're wondering how you can make a difference in Gaza and at home, we suggest that you invite your friends to try this dish by hosting a fundraiser in your home. This dish is perfect for sharing and experiencing a part of Palestinian cuisine, and to start that conversation about how to provide much needed relief in Gaza.
After adding the olive oil to the pan, add the sliced onions and toss them in the oil briefly. You'll also add a little salt to help the onions wilt, and then they just need to cook slowly over a medium heat. These are going to confit in the olive oil and start to soften, so cover them with a lid to trap in the moisture. After about 7 minutes, the onions will be slightly softer, so it's time to add the seasonings. These are a pinch of black pepper and then a very large amount of sumac. If you don't know much about sumac, I have a video that explains everything about this amazing tangy spice. The sumac is going to infuse the onions with a sour fruity flavour as they cook. We want these onions to confit slowly rather than fry, so once the onions have cooked off their liquid, you should pour in some chicken stock or water to increase the moisture before covering it and letting it cook over medium heat. While they continue cooking, break the juicy chicken down into small bite-sized pieces. In a lot of other recipes, they call for the chicken to be shredded, but I personally think it dries the chicken out, so instead of shredding it, tear the chicken into bite-sized chunks. After about 10 to 15 more minutes, the onions will have finally cooked to this incredibly soft texture and taken on this deep purple colour. Add in the chicken and mix it well, and with that the chicken masakan is done. Taste it and see if it's sour enough to tingle your taste buds. If it needs a little more sourness, you can add a little fresh lemon juice to amp it up. Mine was perfect. I really can't explain how deeply rich and flavourful this stuff is, but my face says it all. It really is the gold standard of Palestinian cuisine, and I can see this masakan being used in so many ways, including this fatta. Before we can assemble the fatta, there's 2 remaining components to make, which are the sauces. The first is a Palestinian green chili sauce called da'a, and it's kinda like a green chili salsa. To create a rounded flavour profile on my chili sauces, I always use 3 different varieties of chilies at different heat levels. So I've got some medium heat green chilies, a couple of small really hot ones, and then some fruity flavoured ones with little heat. You should use whatever green chilies you can get hold of. Remove the tops of the chilies and strip out the cores and seeds, then roughly chop them into smaller pieces. Add the chilies to a blender with some garlic cloves, lemon juice and olive oil, and pulse everything together briefly. Aim for a slightly chunky texture, and this is what my one looked like. This traditional Palestinian salsa will last in the fridge for about 4 to 5 days, but mine rarely lasts that long because we eat it by the spoonful. As for the tahini sauce, add a large amount of yogurt to a mixing bowl, and then some tahini paste. Follow the top with freshly squeezed lemon juice, and whisk it together until combined into a thick mixture. Then thin it out with some water to get it to a spoonable texture. Add a little vinegar, some minced garlic, salt and cayenne pepper to season. With the final whisk, I had this incredible tahini yogurt sauce that really complements the intense flavours of the masakan. At last we can assemble, and you can do this on a platter or in individual plates. First add a layer of the crispy fried bread, and then on top of that place a generous helping of masakan. Pour over a good amount of the tahini yogurt sauce, and then a few sprinkles of the chili sauce for a light kick of heat. The rest of the sauces can be served on the side. For garnishes, add some chopped parsley, the fried almonds for extra crunch, and lastly some pomegranate seeds for contrast. This is a stunning dish with equally stunning flavours that's going to really captivate your taste buds. Palestinian food is beautiful, flavourful and incredibly delicious, and I hope this becomes a regular meal in your home.
Wow. I am lost for words. This is just so insanely delicious. You know what you should do is make a massive plate of this and invite all of your friends around, then throw your own fundraiser for Palestine. It's for a good cause, and this is a fantastic meal.